The massive Imperial scout ship emerged from hyperspace near Earth's orbit, its crystalline hull gleaming under the sun's rays. Inside the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, Admiral James Stone watched the main screen with calm eyes while others around him held their breath. "Well," he said, straightening his blue uniform, "they finally found us." The room buzzed with activity as officers tracked 3 more Imperial ships appearing behind the first one. Humanity had known about the Galactic Empire for years, secretly observing their expansion across the stars. Now, first contact was inevitable. "Sir," Lieutenant Mark Wilson called out, "they're broadcasting on all frequencies." Stone nodded. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, revealing a tall humanoid figure with pale blue skin and elaborate golden robes. The Imperial ambassador's voice boomed through the speakers, translated instantly by Earth's AI systems. "Primitive species of the third planet," the ambassador announced, "you stand in the presence of the eternal Galactic Empire. Your world is now under our protection. Submit, and you shall be granted the privileges of a protectorate state." Stone exchanged glances with his second-in-command, Captain Lisa Black. They had expected this. The Empire always followed the same pattern: find a new world, demand submission, and add it to their collection of conquered planets. "This is Admiral James Stone of the United Earth Defense Force," he responded, keeping his voice steady. "We welcome peaceful contact with the Empire, but we must decline your offer of protection. Earth is an independent world." The ambassador's expression shifted to one of amusement. "You decline. Perhaps you don't understand your situation. Our scans show your civilization barely has space travel. Your ships still use chemical propulsion. Your weapons are based on primitive projectiles." Stone leaned forward. "Ambassador, with all due respect, I strongly advise you to reconsider. We've studied your empire's history. You've never encountered humans before. You don't understand what that means. Are you threatening the Empire, Admiral?" The ambassador's voice carried a hint of disbelief. "No," Stone replied. "I'm trying to warn you. Humanity has a long history that you should know about before making any decisions." The ambassador laughed, the sound echoing through the command center. "Warn us? Your species still fights with metal projectiles and chemical explosives. What could you possibly teach the Empire about warfare?" Stone pressed a button, sending a data packet to the Imperial ship. "I've just transmitted a brief overview of Earth's military history. Please, review it before proceeding." The ambassador's eyes flickered as he received the information. His smile faded slightly as he watched scenes from World War II, nuclear tests, and modern combat footage. But his arrogance quickly returned. "Impressive for primitives," he said. "You're quite good at killing each other. But you've never fought a galactic power. You've never faced energy weapons or gravity drives." Captain Black stepped forward. "Sir, they're scanning our military installations." Stone watched as the Imperial ships moved into attack formation. They still didn't understand. Humanity had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of warfare. While other species focused on building bigger ships and more powerful weapons, humans had mastered strategy, tactics, and the psychology of combat. "Ambassador," Stone tried one last time, "we've spent our entire history fighting wars. We've learned from each conflict, adapted, evolved. If you force us to defend ourselves, you will see why we warned you." "Your concern is noted, Admiral," the ambassador replied coldly. "The Empire has conquered 1,000 worlds. Your primitive civilization will be no different. You have one planetary rotation to surrender. Choose wisely." The transmission cut off. Stone looked at the tactical display, watching the Imperial ships take up strategic positions around Earth. They were following standard Imperial doctrine. Predictable, by-the-book positioning that any first-year military student would recognize. "Send word to all commands," Stone ordered. "Implementation of Protocol Omega begins now. And get me General Hayes at the Mars Command. If they won't listen to our warning, we'll have to show them why we gave it in the first place." As the orders went out, Stone remembered an old quote from Earth's history. "I know not with what weapons World War II will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones." The Empire was about to learn why humans had always feared their own capacity for warfare. The next 24 hours would change the galaxy forever. General Robert Hayes walked into the Imperial Council chamber with a small metal box under his arm. The council members, representing the most powerful species in the galaxy, looked down at him from their elevated seats. Their faces showed a mix of boredom and mild amusement. "You requested this meeting, human," the head counselor said, his golden robes shimmering under the chamber's lights. "Speak quickly. Your time to surrender approaches." Hayes placed the box on the presentation platform. He was an older man with gray hair and weathered features, someone who had seen too many conflicts in his lifetime. "Before you start a war with Earth," Hayes began, his voice echoing in the chamber, "there's something you need to understand about humans." He pressed a button on the box. A hologram filled the chamber, showing scenes from Earth's history. The council members watched as ancient armies clashed with swords and spears. "This was how we started," Hayes explained. "Thousands of years ago, fighting with simple weapons. But notice the formations, the strategies. We were already mastering the art of war." The scenes change, showing World War I soldiers in trenches, tanks rolling across battlefields, planes dogfighting in the sky. In just a few thousand years, we went from swords to this. We created weapons that could kill millions. But it wasn't the weapons that made us dangerous. It was how we thought about warfare. One of the council members laughed. "Primitive projectile weapons. Our shields can stop anything moving at such slow speeds." Hayes nodded. "That's what everyone always focuses on, the weapons. But look closer." The hologram showed scenes from different wars. Guerrilla fighters ambushing larger forces, submarines hunting in wolf packs, special forces conducting night raids. We learned that victory doesn't always go to the strongest. We learned to be creative, to adapt. When we couldn't match our enemies in strength, we found other ways to win. The head counselor raised his hand. "Enough of this history lesson. Your point." "My point," Hayes continued, "is that humans have spent more time fighting wars than your empire has existed. We've made every possible mistake, learned every painful lesson, and we've survived it all." The hologram changed again, showing modern military exercises. Soldiers using advanced exoskeletons, swarms of combat drones, AI-controlled defense systems. This is us now. We took everything we learned from thousands of years of warfare and combined it with new technology. But our greatest weapon isn't our guns or our ships. "And what is your greatest weapon?" another council member asked mockingly. "Experience," Hayes answered simply. "We know war. We understand it in ways you never will. Your empire has conquered easy targets, species that never put up a real fight. But humans," he shook his head. "We've been fighting since we could walk upright." The head counselor stood up, his patience wearing thin. "You dare to suggest that your primitive species could stand against the might of the Empire?" Hayes picked up his box and turned to leave. At the chamber door, he stopped and looked back. "We're not suggesting anything. We're warning you. Every human child learns about war in school. Our entertainment is filled with stories of conflict. Our greatest technological advances came from trying to find better ways to fight. We dream about war, plan for it, prepare for it. Not because we want it, but because we know it's always a possibility." He pulled out a small data chip and placed it on a nearby table. "This contains detailed information about Earth's military capabilities. Real ones, not what your scans showed you. We've been hiding our true strength for years, watching your empire expand. If you review this data, you'll understand why we're telling you to run." The council chamber erupted in laughter. Hayes walked out as they mocked him, but he wasn't surprised. The Empire, like so many powerful civilizations from Earth's history, couldn't imagine being defeated by what they saw as inferior beings. Back on his ship, Hayes contacted Admiral Stone. They didn't listen, he said. Stone's voice came through clear and resigned. They never do. Initiate Phase 2. Let's show them why humans don't make empty threats. As Hayes gave the orders, he remembered an old military saying, "The most dangerous enemy is the one who knows they can lose." The Empire was about to learn this lesson the hard way. The Imperial fleet appeared above Mars colony exactly as Earth's military leaders predicted. 12 massive warships, their golden hulls reflecting the dim sunlight, moved into attack formation. The colony below appeared defenseless, just a collection of domes and research stations scattered across the red planet's surface. "Right on schedule," Admiral Stone muttered, watching from his command ship, hidden behind Mars' largest moon, Phobos. "Status report. Imperial ships are broadcasting surrender demands," Lieutenant Wilson reported. "Their shields are up, but they're not expecting any resistance." "Just like you said, sir." Stone allowed himself a small smile. The Empire had fallen for the oldest trick in the book, thinking what they saw was all there was to see. "Send the signal to Mars Defense Command," Stone ordered. "Let's show them what a primitive human colony can do." Below on Mars, hidden doors slid open in the rocky surface. What the Empire had dismissed as simple research stations were actually covering massive military installations. Railgun batteries emerged from underground bunkers, their long barrels pointing skyward. The Imperial commander's voice boomed across all channels. "This is your final warning. Surrender now or..." The message cut off as the first railgun fired. A depleted uranium round, accelerated to near-light speed, struck the lead Imperial ship's shields. The primitive projectile, carrying more kinetic energy than a small nuclear blast, shattered the energy barrier like glass. "Impossible." The Imperial commander's voice crackled through the comms. "Their weapons are just metal projectiles." More railguns opened fire. The Imperial ships, their shields calibrated to stop energy weapons, had no defense against old-fashioned kinetic impacts delivered at relativistic speeds. 2 ships exploded before they could adjust their defenses. Stone watched the chaos unfold. Launch fighter squadrons, execute pattern Delta. From behind Phobos, hundreds of small craft emerged. They weren't the sleek, energy-powered ships the Empire used. These were ugly, practical machines built by people who had centuries of experience in aerial combat. "What are they doing?" an Imperial officer asked as the human fighters split into groups of 3. "Their formation makes no sense." But it made perfect sense to any human pilot. It was the same technique fighter pilots had used since World War II. 2 fighters covering while one attacked. The Empire had never seen such tactics because they'd never fought an enemy that had spent centuries perfecting the art of dogfighting. The human fighters swarmed the Imperial ships, attacking from multiple angles. Their pilots used maneuvers developed over hundreds of years of aerial warfare, adapted for space combat. The Empire's fighters, trained to fight in organized lines, couldn't match their unpredictable movements. "Sir," Captain Black reported to Stone, "the enemy is trying to regroup. They're following standard Imperial doctrine." Stone nodded. "And that's their biggest mistake. Launch the drones." Thousands of small automated drones deployed from hidden bays on Mars' surface. Unlike traditional space weapons, these were based on Earth's missile technology. Simple, expendable, and absolutely deadly in large numbers. The Imperial fleet tried to adapt, but they were fighting against centuries of human military evolution. Their formations, designed to defend against energy weapons and torpedoes, left them vulnerable to tactics developed for atmospheric combat. "This is impossible," the Imperial commander broadcast. "You're supposed to be primitives." "We tried to warn you," Stone replied calmly. "Humans have been killing each other for thousands of years. Did you think we wouldn't be good at it?" The battle lasted less than an hour. 7 Imperial ships were destroyed, 3 were crippled, and the remaining 2 escaped into hyperspace. The Mars colony defense, which the Empire had expected to be a simple show of force, had turned into a disaster. In his command ship, Stone looked at the casualty reports. The humans had lost fighters and drones, but they were designed to be expendable. The real defense systems, the rail guns, and hidden bases were untouched. "Send word to Earth," he ordered. "Tell them Phase 3 is ready to begin. And send a message to any Imperial ships in range." This was just one colony. Do you really want to see what Earth itself can do? As the message went out, Stone remembered humanity's long history of warfare. The Empire had just learned an expensive lesson. There's a big difference between having advanced weapons and knowing how to fight. Imperial High Commander Reed stood before his massive fleet. 500 warships gathered from across the Empire. After the humiliating defeat at Mars, the Empire had deployed its main battle force. The ships filled space around Earth's moon, their golden hulls forming a wall of metal and energy. This time, Reed announced to his officers, "We will crush these primitives with overwhelming force." On Earth, Admiral Stone and General Hayes watched the Imperial fleet's arrival from their underground command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The room was quiet except for the soft beeping of computers and communication systems. "They brought exactly the number of ships we expected," Hayes said, studying the tactical display. "They really don't learn, do they?" Stone shook his head. "They've never needed to learn. Until now." He pressed a button on his command console. "All units, execute Operation Trojan." Across Earth's surface and throughout the solar system, hidden weapons platforms came to life. But these weren't the railguns that had surprised the Empire at Mars. These were humanity's real weapons, the ones they had kept secret for decades. "Sir," Lieutenant Wilson called out, "the enemy fleet is powering up their main weapons. They're targeting major cities." "Let them come closer," Stone ordered. "Wait for my signal." The Imperial fleet moved forward in perfect formation, exactly as their military doctrine demanded. Their sensors showed Earth's defensive satellites and orbital platforms, but these looked primitive compared to Imperial technology. High Commander Reed smiled as his fleet came into firing range. "Begin the attack. Show these humans what real power looks like." The first wave of Imperial ships fired their energy weapons, but something strange happened. Their targeting systems suddenly showed thousands of new contacts appearing from nowhere. "What's happening?" Reed demanded. "Where did these signals come from?" On Earth, Stone gave the order they'd been waiting to give. "Activate the AI Defense Network. Authorization code. Turing's Revenge." Humanity's greatest secret weapon wasn't a new gun or bomb. It was the AI systems they had spent centuries developing. While the Empire relied on basic computer systems, humans had created true artificial intelligence, taught by centuries of military strategy and tactics. The AI took control of Earth's defenses. Imperial ships suddenly found their systems being hacked, their advanced computers no match for humanity's digital warfare. Weapons wouldn't fire. Shields failed. Communications cut out. "Impossible," Reed shouted as his flagship systems started shutting down. "Their technology is primitive. They can't do this." But they could. While the Empire had focused on building bigger ships and stronger weapons, humans had remembered one of the oldest military lessons. The best way to defeat an enemy is to make their weapons useless. "Launch combat units," Stone commanded. "All of them." From hidden bases on the Moon, Earth, and across the solar system, humanity's real fleet emerged. These ships weren't the clumsy vessels the Empire had seen before. They were the products of centuries of warfare knowledge combined with reversed-engineered alien technology. "Sir," Captain Black reported, "the enemy fleet is in chaos. Their formation is breaking." Stone nodded. "They don't know what to do when their doctrine fails. Begin Phase 2 of the attack." Human ships struck from multiple directions, using tactics developed from thousands of years of naval warfare. They attacked in wolf packs like submarine groups from World War II, used hit-and-run tactics like ancient horse archers, and employed electronic warfare that traced its roots back to World War II radio deception. Reed watched in horror as his perfect formation collapsed. A third of his fleet was disabled by AI attacks. Another third was destroyed or heavily damaged by human ships that seemed to appear from nowhere and everywhere. His remaining ships were trapped in a tactical nightmare, fighting an enemy that didn't follow any rules they understood. Full retreat, he finally ordered. All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace. But only half of his remaining ships could comply. The others were trapped by human gravity weapons or too damaged to escape. In the Earth Command Center, Hayes watched the Imperial fleet's retreat. Should we pursue? Stone shook his head. No. Let them run. Let them tell the others what happened here. He looked at the tactical display showing the hundreds of destroyed or captured Imperial ships. Maybe now they'll understand why we warned them to run. The battle for Earth was over. But Stone knew this was just the beginning. The Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had given humanity a reason to fight back. The Imperial Council's emergency meeting chamber was filled with angry voices and fear. Holograms showed the destruction of their main fleet around Earth, playing over and over like a nightmare they couldn't escape. Deploy the planet killer, the head counselor finally ordered, his voice shaking. End this humiliation once and for all. In Earth's command center, Admiral Stone received the warning from their deep space sensors. They're bringing in their superweapon, he announced to his staff. Right on schedule. The planet killer emerged from hyperspace, a massive station the size of a small moon. Its main weapon could crack planets in half. The Empire had used it only twice before, against civilizations that dared to resist. No one had ever survived its power. General Hayes walked up to the main display. Should we show them our response now, sir? Stone nodded. I think it's time humanity stopped holding back. Execute Protocol Omega. Across the solar system, hidden installations powered up. What the Empire didn't know was that humans had been preparing for this moment for decades. They had watched the Empire use the planet killer before, studied its weaknesses, and planned accordingly. Give me an open channel to their command, Stone ordered. Let's give them one last chance to run. The Imperial commander's face appeared on screen, confident despite his fleet's earlier defeat. Surrender now, primitives. The planet killer cannot be stopped. Your civilization ends today. Stone's response was calm. Look at your long-range sensors. Really look. The Imperial commander's expression changed as new data appeared on his screens. Hidden shipyards around Jupiter and Saturn revealed themselves. Thousands of automated drone carriers uncloaked near Mars. Weapon platforms emerged from asteroid bases. Impossible, the commander whispered. You can't have built all this. We've had colonies throughout the solar system for 50 years, Stone explained. Everything you saw before was just our outer defense layer. We wanted you to think we were weaker than we are. An old human military tactic called deception. The planet killer's main weapon began charging. Energy readings spiked as it prepared to destroy Earth. Stone pressed a button on his command console. Now, show them everything. Quantum sensors across the Imperial ships suddenly detected new signals. Hidden behind carefully constructed space-time distortions were dozens of human fleets. They had been there the whole time, using technology the Empire thought impossible. You see, Stone continued, humans learned long ago that the best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't know about. We've been building, preparing, and watching you for decades. The drone carriers launched their weapons, millions of small AI-controlled fighters that moved with impossible speed and coordination. Quantum torpedoes, designed specifically to breach the planet killer's shields, streaked across space. All ships, execute attack pattern Theta, Stone commanded. The human fleets moved with practiced precision. Unlike the earlier battles, they weren't holding anything back now. Ships phased through space using quantum drives, energy weapons based on captured Imperial technology, but improved by human engineers opened fire. The planet killer's shields buckled under the assault. Its main weapon, still charging, began to destabilize. Your weapon has a critical design flaw. Stone explained to the panicking Imperial commander. "We found it years ago when we watched you destroy Centauri Prime. We've been waiting for you to use it against us." The Imperial commander screamed orders to his crew, but it was too late. The planet killer's weapon overloaded, chain reactions spreading through its massive hull. Emergency evacuations began, but the humans had already calculated where the escaped ships would go. "You had so many chances to leave," Stone said quietly. "We warned you. We showed you our history. We told you what would happen, but you just wouldn't listen." The planet killer exploded, the blast momentarily outshining the sun. When the light faded, the mighty superweapon was gone, along with most of its support fleet. In the command center, Hayes turned to Stone. "That'll change things." Stone nodded. "Send word to all commands. Operation Payback begins now." The Empire wanted a war. Let's show them what happens when humans decide to take the fight to them. The Empire had made a final devastating mistake. They hadn't just started a war. They had awakened a species that had mastered warfare over thousands of years. And now humanity was done playing defense. 3 months after the destruction of the planet killer, Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Imperial worlds burn. Not from weapons. Earth had refused to attack civilian targets. Instead, revolution spread like wildfire across the Empire's territory. "Another system has declared independence, sir," Captain Black reported. "That's the 15th this week." Stone nodded, studying the tactical display. The Empire was collapsing faster than anyone had expected. It turned out that many of their subject species had just been waiting for someone to show them that the Empire wasn't invincible. Update from the fronts. Lieutenant Wilson called out. "General Hayes' forces have taken 3 more Imperial military bases. Minimal casualties on our side. The Empire's troops are deserting in large numbers." Earth's strategy had been simple but effective. They didn't need to conquer the Empire. They just had to break its power. Centuries of human history had taught them that even the mightiest empires could fall if you hit them in the right places. "Message from Imperial Command," Wilson announced. They're begging for a ceasefire." The bridge crew fell silent. After decades of arrogance, after refusing multiple warnings, the Empire was finally learning why humans had tried to warn them away from war. "Put them through," Stone ordered. Main screen. The Imperial High Commander appeared, his golden robes now wrinkled and stained. Behind him, alarms flashed, and officers ran in panic. "Please," the commander said, his voice hoarse. "You have to stop this. We'll give you anything you want." Stone leaned forward in his command chair. "We tried to stop this before it began. We warned you. Multiple times. But you wouldn't listen. We didn't understand," the commander admitted. "We thought your warnings were just primitive bravado. We never imagined." "That's your problem," Stone interrupted. "You never imagined. You never had to. Your empire grew by conquering weaker species. You forgot that somewhere out there, you might find someone stronger." On the tactical display, more systems turned from Imperial Red to Neutral Green. Human fleets moved with precision through former Imperial space, dismantling military installations, but leaving civilian infrastructure untouched. "Your forces," the commander struggled to understand. "They don't attack cities. They don't bomb planets. Even now, you show mercy. Why?" "Because we remember," Stone explained. "Every human learns about the horrors of total war. We know what happens when you let conflict consume everything. That's why we warned you. We didn't want this war. We just wanted you to leave us alone." General Hayes' voice came through on a secondary channel. "Admiral, we've secured their main shipyards. Their ability to build warships is now completely neutralized." The Imperial commander watched helplessly as reports of more defeats poured in. The Empire's rigid military doctrine, unchanged for centuries, had no answer for human tactics. Each battle brought new surprises, new strategies that Imperial forces couldn't counter. "What do you want?" the commander finally asked. tell us how to end this." Stone stood up, his voice firm but not cruel. "Unconditional surrender of all Imperial military forces. Freedom for all conquered worlds to choose their own path. And one more thing." "What?" "Your empire will write down everything that happened here. How you ignored our warnings. How your arrogance led to your defeat. Future generations need to understand why it's important to listen when someone tries to prevent a war." The commander nodded slowly, defeated. "And then you'll stop." "Then we'll help you rebuild," Stone replied. "Not as an empire, but as equals. Humans remember our own history. Punishing the defeated too harshly only leads to more war." As the transmission ended, Captain Black turned to Stone. "Sir, was this inevitable?" "From the moment they found Earth." Stone looked at the tactical display, where human ships now guarded formerly Imperial worlds. "No, they had a choice. We gave them every chance to walk away. They chose war instead." He paused, watching as another Imperial fleet surrendered without fighting. "Let this be a lesson to the galaxy," Stone said quietly. "Humans don't want war. We're good at it because we've had to be. But we'll always try to warn you first. Don't make us show you why." 1 year after the Empire's surrender, the newly built Galactic Council chamber on Mars hosted representatives from 100 worlds. The massive room, with its high crystal dome showing the stars above, symbolized the changes that had transformed the galaxy. Admiral Stone, now serving as Earth's representative, watched as former Imperial worlds and newly freed species took their seats. General Hayes stood beside him, both men now wearing the simple blue uniforms of the new Galactic Federation. "Hard to believe it's been only a year," Hayes said quietly. "The galaxy's completely different now." Stone nodded. "Amazing what happens when you let people choose their own path." The last year had seen remarkable changes. Without the Empire's oppression, many worlds had revealed hidden talents and technologies. Some were great builders, others were natural diplomats, and a few had scientific insights that even humans found impressive. The former head counselor of the Empire, now just a regular representative, approached Stone. His golden robes had been replaced by simple civilian clothes. "Admiral," he said, looking much older than before, "the new training program is ready for your review." Stone activated a tablet, reading through the document. It was titled First Contact Protocols. The Earth Lesson. Every military academy and diplomatic school in former Imperial space would now teach about how the Empire's greatest defeat came from ignoring a simple warning. "Good," Stone approved. "Everyone needs to understand what happened and why." The chamber grew quiet as Captain Black, now commander of the Federation's peacekeeping fleet, took the podium. Behind her, a large screen showed images from the war, but not of battles. Instead, it showed the warnings, the attempts at peace, and the final mercy shown to defeated enemies. 1 year ago, she began, the galaxy changed. Not because of who won or lost a war, but because we all learned something important. The Empire thought strength meant having the biggest ships and most powerful weapons. They were wrong. The screen showed Earth's history, ancient battles, world wars, and finally the long peace that came from understanding war's true cost. Real strength, Black continued, comes from wisdom, from knowing when not to fight, from trying to prevent wars instead of winning them. Earth tried to warn the Empire because humans remembered their own violent past. They didn't want to repeat it among the stars. Lieutenant Wilson, monitoring communications from his station, smiled as he received reports from across the galaxy. Former Imperial worlds were thriving under self-governance. Trade routes were busier than ever. Old enemies were becoming allies. "The Federation isn't built on force like the Empire was," Black explained. "It's built on choice. Every world here chose to join. Every species here has an equal voice, and most importantly, we all share what we know." Stone watched as representatives from different worlds nodded in agreement. Humans had shared their military knowledge not to threaten, but to teach others how to defend themselves. Former imperial worlds offered their technology and resources freely instead of hoarding them. There's an old human saying, Black concluded, "The best victory is the one where no one has to fight." The Empire never understood that, but I think we all do now. As the session ended, Hayes turned to Stone. "Think we'll ever have to fight another war like that?" Stone looked around the chamber, where former enemies now worked together as allies. "No, the galaxy learned its lesson. Besides," he smiled, "everyone knows now. If you're thinking about starting a war, and humans tell you to run, you should probably listen." Outside the chamber's windows, Earth shone bright and blue in the distance. Ships from 100 worlds passed peacefully through space, their crews no longer divided by imperial ranks and rules. A group of young alien diplomats stopped to look at a new plaque being installed in the chamber's entrance. It read, "In memory of all who fought and fell in needless wars, may we honor them by heeding the warnings that could prevent the next one." The former empire had wanted to rule the galaxy through force. Instead, they had united it by giving everyone a reason to work together. And it all started because they didn't listen when humans tried to warn them.